Since Renathal was introduced, the Hearthstone community has become addicted to 40-card decks. And while 40-card decks make sense in Quest Priest and Ramp Druid, it's become extremely overused in many other archetypes. Uncorrupt here, 30-card Spooky Mage, because I think the 40-card version is actually just worse. I'm going to ask you, 30-card Spooky Mage, we can see right here our opponent's deck only has 30 cards in it. That makes me think it's probably Rogue, not Shaman. So Spooky Mage versus Rogue. I'm going to ask you, what do we keep? You said we're going to keep Wildfire and Cold Case. You're exactly right. Just looking for stuff to do in the early game. Matchup is roughly, I think, a 50-50. We may be slightly favored against Rogue. And we can see the tradable here, so that read was spot on. If you're running the Hearthstone deck tracker, and you notice how many cards are in your opponent's deck, then that's how you can tell the difference sometimes between Rogue. It's also going to work to help you tell the difference between 40-card Ramp Druid and 30-card Aggro Druid. Not sure if it's intended, not sure how Blizzard actually feels about it, but seems fine to me, just because if it were a physical card game, you'd be able to tell the difference in your deck, your opponent's deck, that is, 30 cards and 40 cards. And next turn we're going Sanctum. Unfortunately this turn we just don't have anything to do but ping. Our opponent plays the Edwin. He's likely going to be shadow stepping that. I don't think you would ever just leave this on the board. Although they may be fine to leave it because we can't kill it unless we top deck exactly Frozen Touch. Our opponent does choose to leave the Edwin on the board, so we can Sanctum and freeze the Edwin. It's likely going to get shadow stepped, would be my guess. But really no question here that this is going to be the play. We're going to freeze that and pass turn back to our opponent. Freezes are going to be very important for us in this matchup. We're going to need some flurries, I think. We're going to need to be able to freeze our opponent's stealth minions for sure. And we're also going to want potentially amplified Snow Flurry, because we're going to need to be able to freeze our opponent's face when they get the big Necrolord Draka weapon. Likely a location going to be coming down here. And this game is already spiraling out of control. When Rogue high rolls, it's just almost impossible to win. The Edwin and the Shadow Step likely could have just sealed the game. And they are still going. Potentially double location here, at which point I think we actually just concede. Opponent emptying the hand. And actually no location and no Draka, so our opponent does have a big Edwin on the board, but they don't have very many cards left in hand. Top deck the Dawn Grasp, so we have a couple of different options here. We can just Cold Case, but we're going to end up taking 14 damage, so that would put us to 15. We can Solid Alibi, so that we're not taking a whole lot of damage, and then that's going to allow us to basically just buy a turn, which seems pretty good. We'll only take 3 damage. Or we could even just Varden to freeze the board. I think we want to hold on to the Varden in case we get lucky enough to top deck a Flurry. We're going to go Solid Alibi, and I think we just want to try to damage maybe just the Knoll. Next turn we'll be able to freeze the Edwin. Not really going to be able to prevent our opponent from shadow stepping the Edwin. If they pick up second Shadow Step, again, that would be a really strong play for them, just because they're going to be able to draw so many more of their cards. So we know, because they only drew 1 card off the Shroud of Concealment, that they do have a Draka in hand. The 3/3, not that big. And we hit a Magister Dawn Grasp. So we can freeze the Edwin and play the Reckless Apprentice. It's going to remove the Knoll. And we'll end up taking at least 6. Dawn Grasp a good pickup for us, but unfortunately, maybe not good enough. I think actually we want to save Reckless Apprentice to go along with a brand for next turn, so we're just going to make this freeze. And ping here. And if we want to be able to brand Reckless Apprentice, we're actually going to have to hold the coin, but it doesn't feel right floating. It doesn't feel right floating this much mana, so I'm actually going to coin out the cold case here. It's going to gain us a little bit of armor, gets us a couple of extra 2/2s in play. We know our opponent has the Draka, but they're not going to be able to make a big weapon because they don't have a whole lot of cards in hand.
You can't always trust what you see.
You see, we take 7 damage here. We still have the Varden to be able to freeze the board if we need it. But we're going to be able to clear their board and basically just lock up the game. We go Varden to freeze and we can actually ping the 9/7, and then next turn we have Brand Reckless Apprentice. Seems like a pretty straightforward turn here. So all of this is going to go face. And then we're going to... ping the Edwin here, just set the Edwin down to 5. So the reason why I feel like the 30 card version is better than the 40 card version is simply because you don't need the extra 10 health. So in order to get the extra 10 health from Prince Renathal, we're going to have to play 10 extra bad cards in our deck. With 10 extra bad cards, the most likely card that we're going to draw on any given draw is most likely going to be bad. And when we're playing solid alibis, like I have in this list, you actually just don't need to be able to... Nice. You actually just don't need to be able to have that extra 10 health. Solid alibi prevents so much damage, as we've already seen in this game, so we're going to be able to most likely clear up this board here. Pretty straightforward play. Our opponent is out of cards. We're still relatively healthy. And I think we do want to go ahead and use the freeze here. But we're still going to try to snipe the 5/1. It's a 50-50. We hit it. And that should be locking down the game for us here. I don't think our opponent can win from this position. Especially with the Dawn Grasp in hand. We're going to be able to heal for 9 with the replayed Cold Case, as well as the 5 armor off of Dawn Grasp. So next turn it's just Dawn Grasp, Shivering Sorceress, and likely we're just going to shove everything face. And our opponent's just all in on trying to kill us, but they don't have the damage. The 5 attack weapon. We'll be able to remove the Draka as well so that we don't take that damage. And of course, with Bran still on the board, it's going to be pretty straightforward for us here. Replays the solid alibi. That's going to be fine. And you can see here that our opponent just concedes.